Oh, hey, what do you know, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Roll for Dex Podcast. My name is Connor.
My name is Connor. Oh, I meant Ian.
That's
Ian.
awkward.
That's the one. Happy Tuesday.
There we go. Been quite a day. Quite a day, but we're looking forward to the Acolyte coming out this upcoming week, June 4th, coming up. Let's break it down. Let's get into it. Get some final thoughts. And we're back to the Roll for Dex podcast. Another reminder, I'm Connor, and that's actually Ian.
You know, I'm
not letting you say it this time.
That's fine. That's fair.
But we've got 1 week, sir. One week left.
Exactly 1 week for the show that we have probably both collectively been waiting for the longest time. I remember a year ago when there were questions if this show was even going to ever premiere and come out.
Yeah, we did have a couple cancellations come out last year, notably the Rangers of the Republic show was canceled, never came to fruition. That ended up turning into Mandalorian Season 3. And we're also hearing the whispers last year that Season 4 got canceled for Mandalorian and they're changing it into a movie. So it was kind of up in the air whether or not the Acolyte was actually going to come out. But my God, I am so happy that it is. It's finally here.
Oh, it's finally, well, it's not here yet, but it's almost here. And I think, honest to God, what saved it, which I don't mind if this is the case, but I think what saved it is that they already had filmed it. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, when it's already done and filmed and probably edited, it's like one of those things where you got to do it. I'm very excited. Very excited. The critics have been saying great things. Great things they've been saying.
Oh, absolutely. Now, normally I will caution this. Typically, the people at the premiere are the people that company wants there. So 9 times out of 10,
obviously, yeah,
most likely it might be a little skewed, but the fact that everything has been more or less overwhelmingly positive, I always take as a good sign.
I mean, if it was tragically bad, I have to believe that somebody would have said something. But I think the fact that we have so much star power going into this show, we've got some good star power coming in, and not very relevant. And this isn't meant to be like a diss towards them, but like not very relevant star power. Like we got in like the Mandalorian and like these weird cameos from like random people that really don't belong in Star Wars. So we're getting these other characters played by these nice, awesome actors and actresses that we know and love from different franchises, but they're not just there to say, hey, I'm here, I'm in Star Wars. Like, they actually took this seriously and wanted to become Jedi. I mean, Carrie-Anne Moss was, I saw a clip of the behind the scenes footage and her talking about her journey to become a Jedi and be in the Star Wars universe and how grateful she was for the experience. And that's the type of person who I want in the Star Wars universe. Not, I'm going to be honest, not Lizzo, who didn't do, like, she doesn't fit. She's not in Star Wars, dude.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I completely forgot that she was
Jack Black and Lizzo are canon in Star Wars.
Jack Black makes so much sense.
Jack Black was an okay cameo, sure, but I think the Lizzo one maybe just a little too far. I don't know, why she was ever considered.
I think Star Wars works best when you have big A-list actors that maybe not everyone knows about.
I agree.
Like the main guy, who I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name because I don't have it in front of me and I don't know. But the main guy who's playing Jedi Master Saul, who was the lead over from Squid Game. He got a lot of his fame and popularity kind of in the U.S. from that, and he's a great actor, and it's good to see him kind of come over. Carrie-Anne Moss is another good. Carrie-Anne Moss, phenomenal actress, very physical actress.
She's a heartthrob from Matrix.
Oh, absolutely.
We love Trinity.
And I heard that Trinity was a big influence into kind of that, like her specific fighting style, which is great.
And I
to
mean,
hear
that
from
makes
me.
total sense. There was a clip in one of the trailers that was put out by Star Wars and Disney that depicts Carrie Ann Moss deflecting some of the thrown knives from the suspected Jedi murderer, former Padawan of Master Soul that we see throughout the trailers. It shows her deflecting those thrown knives, and you can even see it like in the way that she deflects it. Like it was so Trinity from the Matrix. It
Well,
was very like defined, smooth, very technical. And you know, I loved seeing it. It's so like it's refreshing to see somebody who actually knows what they're doing with the lightsaber, rather than I'm sorry, Rosario, you're horrible at lightsaber combat.
well, the thing about it is, and I saw people give it a little bit of crap because people were like, oh, it seems very stiff. It seems very rigid. It seems very kind of bop to bop, you know?
I mean,
But the
that's
thing
what
about it
swordsmanship kind of is. I mean,
is
the
like if
free
you're a master
flowing.
like if you're a master of something, sure, flourish, right? A lot of the flourish in lightsaber styles came about, you know, during the Clone Wars when there was a lot more saber combat. But like if you're just a master in kind of this high peace era, kind of in the High Republic, you're not going to waste any motion, right? You're going to do as
No, it's
little
all
motion
going to
as
be very
possible.
technical. Again,
Yeah.
like you said, we're in the High Republic era. This is a time of peace and prosperity throughout the galaxy. There's not too many adversaries that are really going up against the Jedi at this point that we know of through the storytelling and canon that we currently have. I do have some things that we can get into later,
Okay.
but I think it's you bring up a very valid point where the things that we're going to see throughout this show are going to be very technical, very without wasted motion.
Yeah.
I think that the Sith character that we see is going to be more of that flourishing nature that you're kind of referring to, and I
Yep.
think that's what's going to give him the edge over our current hero set.
And like I'm sure we're still going to get you know,
Oh, there's still
flourish
going to be flourish
kind
from the
of-
light side and all that.
Oh, sure, absolutely. But I think that
it's
a large portion of it will be primarily technical. How do I beat you in as few moves as possible? Type
exactly,
combat.
and I think this bodes very well only because if it is kind of what we're referring to in this instance, where the lightsaber combat on the light side is going to be much more technical, and the Sith side is going to be more flourishy and more flashy with a lot more innovative moves and different things. I think that's a really cool point to make in this series if that's what gives him or them the edge over the Jedi in this series. And I think it'd be cool just because then you know why the Jedi started training more flourishy and using some of the other lightsaber forms in their combat training rather than just staying with their technical abilities. I think this could be a very big foreshadowing moment that they could use to really put a backbone in why lightsaber combat looks the way it does in the High Republic versus what it looks like in the regular Republic, Clone Wars Republic.
Yeah, and like the Galactic War era of
Yes.
Star Wars. Yeah. No, I'm very much looking forward to it. Again, I keep coming back to this point, and I don't know whether or not it's a good point or not. I'm actually a little excited that it is written by people that aren't Star Wars nerds.
I agree with that. It's going to be interesting to see what they pull for the story, though. And that's kind of like where I made a note here is what's the plan here? Are we getting the middle of the story here?
I think we're getting the middle of the story, but also I think the best way to describe this show is it's kind of like bowling without guardrails, right? You have the guardrails when you know kind of what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're coming into it with a Star Wars background, you have the end caps of this is what we know in canon, this is what we pull from. I think coming into it without having those guardrails, like you just said, I'm very curious to see what they pull from. If they pull from weird Legends corners, like it looks like they're going to with the light whip and things of that nature. But also, I hope it brings a different and fresh tone to what we've gotten, because what we've gotten recently, sure, some of it's been good, but for a large part, it's been stale. It's
I
been
agree.
even Mando season 3. We hit a peak with season 2 of Mando, and then season 3, it was good. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't.
Could have been
It
better.
didn't continue. Yeah, it could have been better. It
Could have
didn't
been better.
keep that same peak, and so I think a lot of it is when you now granted they've been telling stories in this universe now for what 40 almost 50 fucking years.
Yeah, I mean that's a feat in and of itself, to be honest.
Sure. And when you do it for as long as they have been, you get complacent, you get set in your ways of trying to find different types of storytelling, which is why I think bringing in someone who doesn't know Star Wars in that sense will benefit them in the long term. Now, one thing that you also brought up kind of is just the middle of the story. I think in terms of timeline wise, I mean, me as a Star Wars fan, I'll let you kind of touch on this kind of as your Star Wars experience here in a second. But like for me, I'm getting really bored of the 60 years that we keep living in.
I am too. I agree.
Yeah, I'm always going to watch. I'm always going to, be a fan because at the end of the day, it is a passion. But I'm getting bored of the timeline that we're living in. I think if this show does well, which I really hope it does, I think it'll give them the confidence to maybe, if not continue the story, go further back in the timeline.
Oh, we need some Old Republic type stuff, man.
I want things that don't even get brought up in the larger Star. Like tell me about some weird conflict on a planet 3,000 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I guess that would be kind of cool. Again, I think there's so much source content that we could pull from to turn it into canon. And specifically, I like the Old Republic era. The Knights of the Old Republic's one of my favorite games that I grew up playing. Then you got the MMO, the Knights of the Old Republic. That one's a good game. That's still around. That's still getting updated. There's so much material in there, and it's even interesting because some of those characters could technically still be alive.
Yeah. And like, I'm still so down for that to be a thing, still pull in people and make it all connect and everything. This is going to sound really funny, especially coming off, the 27 movie run that Marvel had. I don't want Star Wars to become Marvel. And what I mean by that in the sense of, I don't care if everything ties into the larger story. You know what I mean? Sure, is it great to do? Absolutely, but for them, that was the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, I think expanding on the different stories that are within the universe is what they need to do.
Yeah,
I think it's still like, I think those are kind of cool. I really don't think everything needs to connect to the Skywalker saga per se.
Yeah.
Other than some of like the main events. If you're going to do a spin-off show like that, I do appreciate the little tidbits that we do get just to confirm where we are in the timeline type thing.
Absolutely. Keep it all canon. Keep it all, if it needs to connect to the larger story, make it connect to the larger story. But like, tell me about the first Jedi Grandmaster.
That would be cool.
Like, how did that person come into power? Like what was that person like? And like, you can still kind of get into like the larger story in a sense of like, this is the tradition that we see passed down through thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Or Hugh Yang is a great through line for stuff like that because he's been.
I wonder if we'll get
a
cameo.
I hope so. That would be cool. I mean, you have David Tennant now on several Disney contracts, so like,
it makes sense.
I think
that's the one cameo that I would be okay with.
I'd also the two that I would for sure be okay with are Yoda and Hu Yang.
Yeah.
Yoda just because it'd be kind of cool to kind of see him before he was in charge of the Order, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see a younger version of himself. I think that would be kind of cool.
See him as a master and not a grandmaster. See him have to report to someone.
Yeah.
That I don't want to
humanizes him.
Yeah, it humanizes him a little bit. Like I don't want to see him in a 3-hour logistics meeting with kind of the council, but like kind of like show us kind of that tier system, right? With a character that we already know. But yeah, now for you, if Acolyte goes as good as we hope that it does, would you want to see them go more back into the past with more stories, or more like 100 years like into the future?
Well, 100 years into the future is the episode 1.
No. I meant from like the kind of canon universe.
Oh, okay.
So, like, Rise of
I'd
Skywalker,
rather go
Phantom
backwards.
Menace.
I'd rather go backwards. I think there's so much more. There's so much more source material going backwards. Going forwards is hard just because you have to try and innovate new stories.
Yep.
Whereas if you go backwards, you just have to make sure that the story doesn't block out something else in the future, which is not necessarily entirely that hard.
That's entirely fair. And you know, when it comes down to a money thing, I hate to say it this way, but it's true. Lightsabers sell. You know what I mean?
They do.
So like
I've bought several. Several.
Oh, I know. And so like for us to get the chance to go back and see the Jedi at the height, because the thing that people always forget about is, because they always come back to it, is the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight at the end of episode 3. That, quote unquote, is not at the height of the Jedi's power. That is not at the height of what they were capable of. So
Yeah.
I would love to see, what were they capable of? You know, what did a team of 10 or 12 Jedi Masters, like, what were they able to accomplish on a universe scale?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see where they go after this. But I think it's time to get into what we think is going to happen during this.
Oh, I would love to.
So, in some of the, I rewatched all of the trailers in preparation for this this episode of the podcast today.
Ooh, I wish I did, but I have them very well in mind.
So I took note of a couple different things, and one of the biggest things that I noticed is that in one of the trailers, there's a piece of script that comes up on screen that says, "Before there was a menace, there was an acolyte." And so this makes me think that this, first of all, you have to define who is the menace. Who is the Phantom Menace?
Fair. Okay.
Because an argument could be made that the Phantom Menace was Maul. The Phantom Menace could have been Palpatine.
Okay.
Phantom Menace could have been Jar Jar. We don't know.
I'll let you finish your thought, and then I'll kind of give my thoughts on kind of a larger scale.
So what I think here is they could go several different directions. But before we get into who the Acolyte could be, this might be a really good time to mention the rule of 2 within the Sith, and kind of just see how this might be important to consider when watching the Acolyte this upcoming week. So the rule of 2 is a fundamental principle of the Sith. It is a concept that has been debated and explored in various forms of media, including films, books, and online discussions. In essence, the rule of 2 states that there can be only 2 Sith in the galaxy at any given time, a master and an apprentice. The origins of this rule were first introduced by Darth Bane. He was a powerful Sith Lord who lived over 1,000 years before the events of the films. Bane, who was instrumental in rebuilding the Sith Order after a devastating defeat at the hands of the Jedi, recognized the need for a new approach to Sith philosophy. He believed that the Sith's previous structure, which was modeled after the Jedi Order, was flawed and led to internal conflicts and power struggles. This led to the master-apprentice relationship, and it's based on the idea that the Sith master and their apprentice must work together to achieve their goals. The master serves as a mentor, guiding the apprentice in the ways of the dark side and teaching them the skills necessary to become a powerful Sith, while the apprentice, on the other hand, is driven by the desire for power and recognition and is willing to do whatever it takes to become the next Sith master. It's a vicious cycle within the Sith after Bane introduced this rule. Basically, the master in the situation is trying to conquer the galaxy, do whatever they want, kill all life, whatever. And the apprentice's role in all of this is essentially to gain all of the power necessary to kill their master and take over and then enact their own plan. So very typically you don't see the Sith's plans come to fruition because typically the master dies before they are able to accomplish what they set out, and the former apprentice then takes their mantle, has their own apprentice to achieve their own ends.
Well, and that's what kind of made Palpatine so dangerous as the Sith master, because he kind of used his apprentices kind of like cannon fodder. Where he knew that
he recognized what the rule of two was, and very strategically was able to structure himself into a way where he was always necessary.
Well, and he understood that the best way for his plan to succeed is if he stayed in the shadows. So he would let his apprentice, Dooku, Maul, whoever, kind of go off, kind of make these big grand things happen, and then take the fall for it, usually in the form of their death. And then he would just in the shadows get a new one, do the same thing. And so that for me, honestly, I think is what the menace in the Phantom Menace is the Sith menace, not just one person, but them two as a collective.
Interesting thought. Well, I kind of took it a little step further than that. I really honed in on the fact that the menace could be Palpatine, and before the menace there was an acolyte. And to me, that spoke, because in 100 years, they technically could do some fast tracking of the Sith lineage here.
They could.
Now, Sith Lords do have an annoyingly long lifespan, and most of them do survive throughout the High Republic. If you kind of look into it a little further, they're not necessarily active, but they may have been alive / hadn't died yet.
Yeah.
Some of these people, I just started looking up, and these are some of the people I think could be the Acolyte. And specifically when looking at if the menace would be Palpatine, I think it would be very interesting to see Darth Zana. Now, Darth Zana was actually Darth Bane's apprentice.
Oh, interesting.
So I think you don't do Bane, because Bane is out. Like I think if you're gonna do Bane, he's got to be his own story.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And that's why I think we're getting the middle of the story here. I think we're getting after Xana kills Bane.
Okay.
But before Xana takes on Plagueis.
Gotcha. Was
or no, not Plagueis.
Master?
Not Plagueis. Who was it? It was Tenebrous.
Yes, Tenebrous
so technically the lineage goes Bane, Xana, Cognis, Millennial, Tenebrous, Plagueis, Sidious.
Yes. I think me personally, my own personal theory, I think Tenebrous is the one that we're going to be getting, but I'd be down if they kind of cut out the middleman a little bit and kind of went bump to bump.
So the only reason I didn't think that Tenebrous was going to be the Acolyte here is if you look at the Acolyte in the picture that we do get, and if this is the Acolyte, This could just not be the Acolyte. But I'm basing my theories off of the guy in the helmet with the creepy smile is the Acolyte. The issue with it being Tenebraus is that he is a Bith. A Bith is actually the race of the Cantina band.
Oh, no. Okay, gotcha.
So I don't think that form of head would fit in this helmet.
Also fair.
So that's why I ex-nayed Tenebraus from my research and kind of went with Xana on that one. But Xana is a little further back in the lineage, but we'll see what they do with the lineage on that one. Now, if it's not Xana, I would, and they do try and fast track it, whatever, it could be Bane. If you look at Bane's pictures, and there's not very many, but he is depicted to kind of almost look like a samurai.
Which is so cool, by the way.
It is very cool because it does kind of almost fit that vibe that we've been getting from this series as a whole through all of the trailers that we've been getting. I've been getting very like almost Chinese samurai versus ninja-esque type combat. And I think Bane being depicted as a samurai in previous lore, I think that bodes well to something that, again, we might get separate from the Acolyte. I'm hoping that we get like a whole trilogy type thing with Darth Bane leading into like different set. Like I would love to see the Sith lineage and how it was thwarted and what happened. But it could be Darth Bane. So that was an interesting thing that I had seen. The other one that and these ones are kind of cool because these get into if they were just to pull these people out of the Old Republic.
Yeah. Because
technically these people could be alive.
Okay.
So the first person I would like to mention is XR Kun. XR Kun is a legendary Sith Lord in the Star Wars universe known for his incredible power and abilities. He was a human male Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side and became one of the most feared Sith Lords in the galaxy. Now, this kind of fits the lore that we've already been getting through the Acolyte trailers of Jedi are starting to be murdered. We believe it's a former person from the Order. They're blaming a Padawan right now. Maybe it's XR Kun. I think that would be cool.
That'd be very cool.
Just some background about this guy, just because I found him to be super interesting. XR Kun was discovered as a Force sensitive and taken in for training by the Jedi Order. He apprenticed under the venerable Jedi Master Vado Siosk Bas and trained on the planet Dantooine. However, Kun's potential was greater than that of his peers, and eventually he turned to the dark side, becoming a very powerful Sith Lord. He is extremely skilled lightsaber duelist and uses the dark side to augment his physical abilities and employ telekinesis, which would also support him being here because of the lightsaber throw. He throws his lightsaber very far across the woods, cutting through multiple different trees, and that lightsaber does come back to his hand. So that is an example of telekinesis, as well as just general force ability. But so he was also known for his incredible feats, including bending the force to his will to generate a supernova and entrancing the entire galactic senate at once. So this guy is no joke.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
So I think if they bring this guy in, that's something cool that they could build off of this and potentially kind of you insert him here in place of like some of the like filler people between Bane and Xana. So like you kind of rewrite Cognis and Millennial and Tenebraus.
And maybe just have them become one person with a familiar name. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like this XR Kun could be these three people put into one, and he becomes the new master of Plagueis within the canon community. I think that would be a kind of cool aspect to look at.
Yep.
The other one. And I don't know if you recognize this name, but Darth Vitiate.
I have heard it, but I can't recall. Oh, it's him. Okay.
So
It's
it
him.
is him. This
for
man,
those that don't know.
for those of you who don't know, Darth Vitiate is a precursor to quite literally my favorite person in Star Wars history and lore. He is the master who helped raise Malak and Revan. He is the Sith Lord who turned them from the light to the dark, training them from young children, and eventually leading to Revan killing Malak and assuming his mantle as Darth Revan. If we get Darth Vitiate, I mean, this would be nuts.
That would be insane.
This would be insane. I think but again, this is something that I feel deserves its own trilogy movies. Like,
Yes.
I think you could literally take the animation from Star Wars: The Old Republic, the game, and
Make it
literally just
flush it out.
literally just edit it together and put it out, and you've got a oh my god movie.
Yeah. No, that would be absolutely insane. Where does no, sorry, ignore me. I just answered my own question. Although, would that mess up timeline wise if it was him and then Revan wasn't around?
See, and that's where you
Now-
kind of get into it and it starts
Now-
getting muddy. I wish it wasn't just 100 years. I wish we were further back at this
Yeah.
point.
Now, granted, that technically Vitiate and Revan aren't that storyline for them isn't technically canon. So like
Which
they could,
that's why they could bring it over.
yeah, they could do it absolutely. That would be very interesting.
What if this is Malak?
Again,
What
a
if this is
very interesting concept.
before? What if this is before Revan killed Malak?
That would be very cool. Me personally, kind of my own theory based on what I've read, seen, whatever. If I had to guess, my guess is that the Acolyte isn't actually an active member of the Sith. I think the Acolyte, quote unquote, is going to be Master Saul's former apprentice, the one who's kind of going around causing issues.
And see, that's kind of where, like, I like it, but I think this is a very pivotal moment for the Star Wars production and Star Wars franchise, where they need to do something to really bring in a lot of their fan base back. Yeah. And I think they need to do something big here, which is, again, in my opinion, my favorite theory out of this is XR Kun.
I think so, yeah. I think that for me, I think if they did the former apprentice being the Acolyte, I don't think that pulls away from XR Kun or whoever else to be kind of the main Sith. I think it just means that the main focus of the story for at least, I would guess, the majority of the first season, if this gets multiple seasons, won't be the Sith, but instead they think that this person, this former apprentice, is this dark side user, this dark side apprentice or whatever. But to me, the word Acolyte kind of presets apprentice, presets Sith use, presets kind of all of that. I think that she's on the path to become that, but I don't think she will, or B is currently. You know what I mean?
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what they do, and I'm so excited for this. Do you have any final thoughts, my friend?
I do not. Outside of the fact that I am unbelievably excited for this show, I hope it's going to be good. We will give you a a brief spoiler-free, if we can.
Oh no,
rundown.
there's probably gonna be
Alright, fine.
spoilers in the episode. I'm just gonna be honest for you guys. If you don't want, we'll put it in the title. We'll put it in the title. Spoiler alert. But
Yeah, no. But yeah, we will talk about it the first 2 episodes, right? Because they're doing a 2-episode.
2-episode premiere coming out June 4th on Disney Plus. That's gonna do it for this episode of the Roll for Dex podcast. My name is Connor.
My name is Ian.
And have a great night, everyone.